Music and advertising have what I would call a symbiotic relationship, which in plain English means they help each other out. A good song can help make an ad more memorable, and a big ad placement can help artists get their music out there. When I think of classic commercials from my childhood that had good music in them, the first thing that comes to mind is the series of iPod commercials with like the colored background and the silhouette dancing. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's so iconic that I even remade it myself for a music video, and I am so sure that I was not the only artist to do that. A song that I personally know that I only found out about because of an iPod commercial is Jerk It Out by the Caesars. And now as an adult, I'm like, yo, that's kind of a freaky ass song to have in an iPod commercial. Like, yeah, it's definitely about what you think it's about. Like, go look at the lyrics on Genius. I'm not gonna dive any further into that. It wasn't just that song. Songs like Feel Good Inc. by the Gorillaz were also pushed heavily by a popular Apple commercial. The iPod commercial placement was so powerful because the actual commercial was selling the device that you would then go use to download that song. So like for people who want to go buy an iPod off that commercial, they're like, oh, you know what song I should get once I finally plug it into my computer? The one from the commercial. What a dream situation for an artist, am I right? It works in the other direction too. If you like the song so much that you want to listen to it, and then you realize that the ad is telling you about a device that can just download single songs so that you can listen to them, it's gonna make you want to go buy it. So in the music industry, when a song is put in a commercial, a TV show, a movie, or something along those lines, it's called a sync placement. Not like a bathroom sink, like synchronized. Sync placements are one of the very few parts of the music industry where artists who aren't already rich or already famous can actually get paid. I mean, think about it, right? Artists who are going on these big tours, of course they're making a ton of money, but you have to already have a lot of fans to be able to do that. Anybody's song can get slapped right into a commercial and they can reap the benefits of it. Just ask me. It just happened to me. I just had my song put in a Foot Locker campaign. And along the way, I learned a lot about what the process is like. And I have some insights on some best practices for artists who also want an opportunity like this. There are entire sectors of the music industry, the film industry, the advertising industry that are dedicated to managing the ways that music ends up in these mediums. And so with so many people obviously wanting an opportunity like that, a lot of the information about them is a little bit opaque. People don't really want to give up all the sauce. And so I don't have all the sauce, but I might as well share what got me here. But before we get into all that, if you like videos on music like this, I really appreciate a like and subscribe. I post a video every week. If you want to see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI Gaviota, throw me a follow, and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos in the broadcast channel one day early. Also, if you're watching this video the day that it comes out, my album, Gut Punch, comes out at midnight. If you're watching this after that, it's already out. I'll put the link to either pre-save it or stream it in the description. And if you're watching this video the day that it comes out and you happen to be in New York and you happen to be free tonight, I have a show at Baby's Alright with an amazing lineup where I'm playing the whole album, playing a bunch of fun stuff. It's gonna be a great time. The ticket link is in the description. That's a long shot, but you never know. I'll see you guys there. Back to the video. So I'm sure the first question that a lot of people want to ask is, how did you get an opportunity like this? And the truth is, on the surface, I did absolutely nothing. I was just sitting in my house in August and I was checking my email and I realized I got a message from somebody I didn't recognize from a company that I'd never heard of asking me about licensing my song HADJI to HADJI for some project that they didn't describe. They wanted to get on a call, and so even though there wasn't that much information, I was like, sure, okay. So they called me like an hour or two later, they explained what it was for, and they said, you know, it's not necessarily that you're gonna get it, but we wanna put your song in there and see if it fits. So I sent them all the stuff, and then I didn't hear back for a couple months, but then eventually I did, and they told me I got it. And through that process, I feel like I've started to put together like how that whole industry works, like piece by piece. So a company like Foot Locker hires a third-party company to produce the advertisement. Then they go and look for the music that would match the thing that they made and the idea that they came up with. So the company that reached out to me was that third party. So that's more advertisement specific. But in terms of like getting placed on a TV show or getting placed on a movie, a lot of those productions have what they call music supervisors, which is a person whose job it is to help find the right music to fit into whatever the project they're working on is. And while sometimes music supervisors can go right to the artist, there's also another middleman involved from the artist side. There can also be another middleman involved on the artist side called the sync house. And they serve as a representative for musicians. They'll represent a bunch of artists or a bunch of producers or whatever, and they'll say, hey, here's our catalog. If we have anything that fits, they'll submit it. And sync houses usually have two different types of deals: exclusive deals and non-exclusive deals. So if you have a non-exclusive deal with a sync company, basically what that means is anything that they get you placed on, they would take a percentage of, but you can also find other opportunities for yourself or with other non-exclusive sync companies on the side, and then they wouldn't get a cut of that. Exclusive sync contracts obviously just means that you work with one company and one company only. I actually do technically have a non-exclusive sync deal, which meant that there is a small company that pitches my music out to certain opportunities. And if they did get me placed in anything, they would get a percentage. The Foot Locker thing that I got did not come from them, so I didn't have to give them a percentage. And the company that was representing me, they actually pivoted and they don't really do as much sync stuff anymore. But back when they were doing it, I would get active briefs like, hey, we need a song that sounds like this. We need something that sounds like this. So they would even hit me up and be like, hey, your song goofy, your song tricky. We feel like it might fit this thing, so we want to submit it for you. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get lucky and get any of those opportunities to come through, but they were trying, which is cool. So if you're an artist watching this video and you're wondering like, how can I start getting into the sync world? How can I understand like what people are looking for? I think a great place to start would be looking up non-exclusive sync companies and just pitching your music to them. I'm sure maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are probably open to finding new artists. For me, I was reached out to by a company and they already represented some artists that I knew. So I was like, cool, I'll give it a shot. But I'm sure that they also take submissions too. So if you're starting from zero, that's what I would do. So look, I'm a guy with 2 sync placements now to my name, and people who are more experienced in getting sync placements could probably talk about best practices and some of the nuances with music supervisors or sync companies or those third-party companies that produce the commercials, but I can't really talk about that because my experience is rather limited. What I can talk about is stuff from the artist perspective. And the first thing that comes to mind is, remember when I said that I didn't do anything to get that sync placement? I don't think that's actually true. I think on the surface that's true, but in reality, I did do something. I actually put my music out. A lot of artists will sit on music forever and not put it out. And how the hell is somebody gonna find it if it's just sitting on your laptop? You know what I mean? So if you're an artist waiting for the right time to put something out, if you're like, oh, like this song would be so cool in like this movie, but like I gotta wait till I know the guy who makes them. Like, no, you don't. Just put it out. Like that gives it a better chance of being found than showing it to nobody does, right? Like if you have that mindset right now, like pause this video, go to DistroKid and just upload that right now, man. Like for example, I put this song HADJI to HADJI, the one that's in the commercial, I put it out in August 2023. It was an album track on my album Wallflower. It wasn't even the song that I pitched like to Spotify when I submitted the album. I did shoot a video for it because I thought it was like a fun song and a good song, but I didn't necessarily have huge expectations for it. And so in a little bit over a year, the song has about 60,000 streams on Spotify, which is pretty good. It's my 25th most streamed song in my catalog. It's not particularly close to being my most popular song, being my most liked song, being my most streamed song, being my most asked for me to play it live song, being my most used on TikTok song. Like it's not really any of those. People like it, but it's not like an obvious like catalog standout in terms of numbers. And so if I was to have a pessimistic outlook on putting that song out, you could say like, oh look, it flopped. It didn't do anything. But guess what? Somewhere in those 60,000 streams was a listener who heard my song on Spotify and said, this fits a Foot Locker campaign that I'm working on. And that would have never happened if I never put it out. So the lesson there is to put that shit out and stop calling your songs a failure just because after 2 months you're not Drake. You know what I mean? Like anything could happen. And another thing about this song is I actually got feedback from some people that I trusted who said they didn't really like this song and they didn't think I should put it out before I put it out. Now, personally, I believed in the song, so I stuck with it, and it ended up paying off a little bit later. And to be clear, this is not meant to be some kind of flex. It's not meant to be like an I told you so, right, to the person who told me that. Because I'm probably wrong all the time about what songs are gonna work and what songs aren't. But I think earlier in my career, I personally would struggle with receiving negative feedback because I would take it too hard. Someone told me a song was good, and then I should put it out. If someone told me a song was bad, I shouldn't. And I don't mean for this to say that like feedback is not valuable. Feedback is very important. It's been so incredibly helpful to me in my career. But just because one person doesn't like it, doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't put it out. So if you're an artist who can relate to like other people kind of messing with your vision sometimes, keep this as a success story to believing in your vision. And even beyond a song by song basis, the same week that I was reached out to about the Foot Locker campaign, I got rejected by a sync house that thought my music was not a good fit. Again, you're not going to please everybody. Not everybody is going to see the vision. But the truth is, not everybody has to see the vision. And I really think that's one of the most important things that I've learned in my career. It only really takes one person to get it for an opportunity to come through. And on the flip side, I also know for myself that if I got that rejection without the Foot Locker thing also being in the back of my mind, it would have hurt a lot more. And I think I personally need to grow from that. Because our validation should not come from other people's opinions on our work and whether or not they think it's commercially viable. And for that to be true, you know, it has to go both ways. Like, I can't just only conditionally love my song because it got on a playlist or in a commercial. And that sounds like artist advice, because it is, but it's also kind of a reminder to myself, because that's something that I personally struggle with sometimes. And so I think the two burning questions that I personally would have as an outsider, whether as like a fan or an artist who has never had this experience, would be, one, how much do you get paid? And two, how many more streams do you get after something like this happens? And for the first one, I don't think it's like super good business for me to say exactly how much I got paid, but I can give you more of a general outline of what these kinds of deals look like. Now, if you're a famous artist who has a song that is already popular, like a regular person would recognize the song in the commercial without the context of the commercial, you might be looking at 5, 6 figures, maybe even 7 figures if it's like the Super Bowl. If you're an independent artist with a lesser known song, maybe you're looking more at like 4 to 5 figures. The other difference that will affect your payment is the scope of the advertisement. Is it gonna be on actual TV, or is it gonna be a digital ad only? Now, we might have the belief that nobody watches like regular TV anymore. That's not 100% true, and those ads still pay really well. Digital only ads tend to pay less, although it's not always the case. It's just one of many factors. And the funny thing is, a lot of people now stream digital things onto their TV, right? Whether it's like YouTube TV or something like that. So even though a lot of people will see my ad on the TV screen, it's technically still a digital ad, which can be a little bit frustrating when you realize the payment scales, but it is what it is. That's the business. Another really important thing to understand about payment in terms of sync placements is how it's split up. So in song ownership, there's 2 parts to song ownership. There's the master and there's the publishing rights. So first of all, if you're not registering your songs on BMI or ASCAP or whatever, you should go do that right now. I'm not gonna tell you how to do it, but I'm sure a billion people have already done that on YouTube, so you can find a video somewhere. But basically, let's say you got $10 for the sync placement. $5 of that will go to the master owners and $5 of that will go to the publishing owners, which like probably will be the same people, but just, you know, like the division of it might be different. For example, you might own 80% of the master and 50% of the publishing. So then you would get 4 out of the $5 from one half, and then you would get $2.50 out of the 5 from the other half. Does that make sense? That's traditionally how it's split up. Obviously, every case is going to be different, but that should just give you an idea. Maybe if you're a producer who produced a song that gets put in a commercial or something like that, you know, it should give you an idea of what you can expect. Also, is a very important reminder to make sure that you have concretely figured out who owns what in your music, because at some point, if it does really well, it's going to matter. All right, the second question. Are people running to go listen to the song just because it's in an ad? And unfortunately for me, it looks like the answer is not really. If I go on Spotify and I look at the streams over the last 12 months, the ad is mostly run in like late October, early November. And it looks like streaming of the song did increase a little bit in that period, but maybe only by like 20 or 30 plays a day. Spotify is one platform, so I can also go and check Apple Music, which is also really helpful because it shows you Shazams. And if anybody doesn't know what Shazam is, it's an app that you can use to identify songs that are playing somewhere, and Apple Music tracks those for you, which is a great indicator for your song being in a commercial, your song being played in a store, a DJ using your song in a set, right? It's like wherever someone's outside and they're like, ooh, I like this song, what is this? Or if they're at a party, like, what is this, right? That's a good way to show your song organically spreading. So it's a cool thing to check out also for artists who don't really check their Apple Music app. You should check that for the Shazams at least. So sure enough, in the last 4 weeks, HADJI to HADJI is my second most Shazammed song, but also in the past 4 weeks, it's only my 25th most played song, which is weird because it's exactly the same on Spotify. It's important to remember that Shazams and streams on Apple, it's important to remember that Shazams and Apple Music streams like don't always match up perfectly, because all the Shazams go to Apple Music, but some of the people who are Shazamming don't actually listen with Apple Music. They use like Spotify or Tidal or SoundCloud or whatever, right? Basically though, it's likely that some people are streaming from the commercial, which is really cool to see, even if it's not that many people. And obviously when I say things like that, I want to make it so clear that I am so grateful for this opportunity. Even one stream coming from being in a commercial, I am super grateful for it. But I also want to show artists like the realness of it all. And if you want to compare it to what a commercial would have done in the past, it's night and day. For example, in 2007, Apple used the song 1234 by Feist in an iPod Nano commercial. And it went from 6,000 units in sales the month before to 249,000 digital sales units during the month that the ad ran. The song even peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now, part of that, of course, is because Apple has really well curated ads, and a reputation for picking good songs that people weren't familiar with. But they were also selling you the device that you would then use to listen to the song, like I said in the intro of the video, right? That's really a perfect storm for an artist. Like, look at the ad that I'm in. Amazingly shot, really cool, but its goal is to sell you the sneakers, not to sell you my song. So of course the conversion is not going to look like what the Apple commercials conversion did. Another factor is that I think we're used to being advertised to all the time on the internet, whether we know it or not. And when those Apple commercials were at their heyday, way more people were like watching TV and kind of seeing the same few commercials over and over again. One friend of mine told me a funny anecdote when I posted that I got the ad, which is that they had it on mute and they actually skipped the ad because they didn't know that my song was in it. Because of the landscape of the digital world, ads are also so much more targeted than they used to be. All of these platforms like YouTube know so much about you particularly that they're going to use that demographic data to pick the ads that they're going to show you. Now compare that to 2007 when the whole family was sitting in the living room watching the TV, everybody got the same ad. Grandma, the kids, the parents, they were all watching that iPod commercial whether or not they were going to buy an iPod or not. Ad space on TV is also expensive, especially for things like the Super Bowl, but even in general. And so when companies go digital with their ads, they save a lot of money on paying for the actual spot, which means that they can pay to create multiple different ads that are kind of targeted to different people. And what that means for artists is theoretically more of them can get sync placements because there's more ad spots that are curated to different people, which is great. But the downside of that is artists are going to get paid less on average when that happens, and less people are going to see them and they're going to see less conversion. I'm not necessarily saying that it's overall a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing. It's a thing that I've noticed. There's a lot of moving parts, but I hope that kind of makes it all make sense. So to wrap it up, if you're an artist, put your music out, take feedback, remember above all to trust your instincts, and figure out who owns what and register everything. Look into non-exclusive sync opportunities if you want to start dipping your toes into the world. And next time you see an ad come across your screen, even if you don't want to buy whatever they're selling, maybe unmute it for a second because you might find your new favorite artist. And if you get the Foot Locker ad that my song is playing like on this video, definitely screenshot it and send it to me because that's hilarious. And that's it for this week. Let me know what you want me to cover next. Peace.